Good morning and welcome to your Meet Your Future campaign. I'm Sarah and I'm part of the Bridge GM team at Greater Manchester Combined Authority. Meet Your Future was launched in April 2019 to enable young people like you to meet with and have meaningful conversations with employers whilst experiencing different workplaces. Over the past 12 months, we've been speaking with young people from all 10 local authorities in Greater Manchester to find out how you're feeling and how you feel like you should be supported now and in your future. We've been listening and we've learnt a lot. We have developed a suite of information, resources and services that are there to help you. This can be found on GMAX and I'll pop the link in the chat to GMAX for you. And I know many of you will already be familiar with this, but please speak to your teacher to find out more. We've also adapted the Meet Your Future campaign to better fit what you've been telling us. Throughout this academic year, you'll be able to join sessions and chat with Greater Manchester and national employers and about growth sectors across Greater Manchester, different pathways and the vast array of career opportunities that are available to you in the future right here in Greater Manchester. In this session, you're going to hear from Roosevelt Alexander, who's a Sector Director of Skills from the Growth Company, talking about the future is electric. Hopefully, this session will inform you, inspire you, and show you why you should be hopeful about the future and optimistic about your future in Greater Manchester. Throughout the session, please make use of the question box for questions and we'll cover these in the Q&A section. If you'd like to use captions or subtitles during the event, please select captions and subtitles on in your video controls. I am now delighted to introduce you to Roosevelt for this morning's session.
Thank you and good morning. So as mentioned, my name is Roosevelt Alexander and I am the Sector Director of Skills and I am based at the Growth Company. As part of the Future is Electric, I'm here to present what the future could potentially look like for all those that are interested in the Green Future Industry Skills Fair. So if you move on to the first slide, I'd like to tell you about the contents of this presentation. So in this presentation, I'm going to discuss the current curriculum. This is what we actually do at our current site at the Trafford Park in Manchester. I will then like to talk about the future and how it can and will become electric. The drive for the Greater Manchester Combined Authority to become green, jobs for the future and how they will impact on all of yourselves. I'll also discuss what employers want, not now, but both now and in the future. There will be a number of future skills and the skills that we're doing today will be different to the skills that we have in the future. And at the end of the presentation, we'll take some questions and I believe you will set 4 questions by myself and hopefully we'd like to answer them at the end. We will then be open to any questions. So that's the content for discussions. So let's move on to the very first slide, which is the current curriculum offer. So as mentioned at the outset, I'm the Director of Skills and I work at a skills centre which is based in Trafford Park, Manchester. So as you can see from the slides there, these are the current type of curriculum offers that we do. On the left hand side, this is an example of a joinery session where a young person has completed a small dovetail joint on a couple of pieces of timber. So very basic joints, but very articulate and very good for people to learn these type of skills. In the middle, we have motor vehicle, what we also call automotive, and we teach young people how to repair, fix cars, both what we call heavy and light. When we say light vehicle, what we're talking about is a picture, small cars that you see on the roads, but also heavy are the big articulated lorry. These are called heavy vehicles. So we deliver heavy and light vehicles at the Trafford Skills Centre. On the right hand side, there's an example of a young lady plastering a ceiling. So this is a typical construction type qualification that we currently deliver in the Skills Centre. The bottom left hand side is a person in the engineering section and they're doing a bit of programming and testing of a bit of equipment. And that is also similar to the one in the middle, where they have to learn about the wires, the electricity, the voltage and the safe usage within this environment, particularly like the example on the right hand side, which is electrical installation. So this is just a small example of the type of curriculum that we deliver out of the Trafford Park Centre. If you wish to know more, there will be a small section at the end where you can click onto a link, and that will give you far more information about our offer. So what are the skills of the future? So if we move on to the next slide, we can see the difference. So this slide is called "The Future is Electric." So why is it electric? Well, the reality is we'll always need the standard types of jobs that we have today. So as mentioned on the first slide, we're always going to need joiners, electricians, and all the standard jobs you see today. However, as things move on and we move away from the carbon emitting atmosphere and across to the new electric future, new jobs will emerge. So what are some of these things that we will see that are totally electric? Well, on the left hand side, we can see a picture there, and I hope you can see that, of wind turbines on the edge of a cliff. These wind turbines take very good advantage of the high winds that come off the coast. They power the turbines and they generate electricity. If we have enough of them, they can power hundreds of homes across the country. Within the centre, we have two pictures of electric vehicle charging stations. As we move into the future once again, we know more and more cars will become electric. I'm sure many of you will have seen electric cars on the road as I speak, but as we go into the future and into the next decade, every car that's brand new will be electric. So it's really important that we have enough electrical installation points for cars to be charged. On the right hand side, we have what we call solar voltaic or PV. These are panels that sit on roofs of buildings, and they take electricity directly from the sun. There's two types of panels. There's one panel that heats electric by using the sun's powers for electricity, and a different type that actually does hot water. So it keeps your home nice and warm. Very cheap, very efficient, but very effective. On the extreme bottom, we have an example of somebody using artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and virtual reality headsets. This allows this individual to control or do tasks from hundreds of miles away. He has some grippers on his fingers, he has the headsets on his face, and he can now see and control for many thousands of miles simply from his chair. The person in the middle is controlling a drone, and as drones now, when they first came out, it was very basic and they went up and down, left and right. Now they've got very good sensors on, sensors that can detect body from many, many distances away, even heat. This one's been used on a plant where it's dangerous, where there is fire and they want to rescue somebody. So what they can do is control the drone to go over to the fire, identify the person through the camera, tell the rescuers where they are, and then the rescue can go and get that person. So this then ensures that nobody is at danger, because the drone can be damaged, but unfortunately, if the drone is damaged, it's not a problem because the humans are safe. And on the right hand side, we have a box with a fan in it. Now this box just looks like a box with a fan, as mentioned, but unfortunately it is not. It is a nice kit of high-tech information. So what it is, it's called an air source heat pump. Now, in simple terms, this pulls the air into the box, sucks it from the outside, warms it up and pumps it around the home. So it's low energy heating for any home that you have at your home. So going into the future, you will find these more and more on the bolts on the back of homes. You have a very similar one called a ground source heat pump, which actually sits on the ground but takes heat from the ground as opposed to the air. So all of these new technologies are here today, and some will be into the future. So the future is indeed electric. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So the Greater Manchester Combined Authority has a decree something called the Clean Growth Mission. Now, the Clean Growth Mission is a vision to be carbon neutral by 2038. So how is it going to be carbon neutral in the Greater Manchester Combined Authority by 2038? Well, as you can see from the quote below, and I'll just pick out a few key points, we aim to reduce travel, use more public transport, and if we are on transport, we would like to use low emission vehicles. We'd also like to build homes and buildings that are far more energy efficient. That means they use less energy, which costs us less, and therefore reduce the carbon neutrality. We would also like to start using solar voltaic, which is the panels on the roofs that was mentioned in the previous slide, and also low carbon heating. When all of these things are put together, we will eventually become carbon neutral. But what is carbon neutral? Well, in simple terms, it's a balance between the amount of carbon that we use in the atmosphere, and we'll balance it off with the green tech that we will bring for the future. So going forward, less carbon will be emitted, more green tech such as wind turbines will be produced. Therefore, we will balance the carbon neutrality being released into the atmosphere. So hopefully, fingers crossed, if we achieve this target of 2038, we will see less carbon being reduced and eventually a cleaner, greener planet. So if you move on to the next slide, please. So future jobs. Well, as mentioned in the previous slide, there are a number of jobs that we do today and there will be them jobs in the future, such as joinery, brickwork, plastering, etc. However, as we move into this new green space, many more new jobs will emerge, and hopefully these will be jobs that you will be attracted to. So if I move down the list on the left-hand side, we currently do electrical installation apprenticeships. So these are young people that want training in how to install electric items into their everyday home. However, if you go below that, we have heat pump apprenticeships. Now, as mentioned on the previous slide, we have ground source heat pumps and air source heat pumps, but we don't have enough people to install these into the homes. So going into the 2030s and 2040s, we will need thousands and thousands of heat pump apprenticeships and engineers who can install these items into their everyday homes. Smart meter installers. Well, to help the households use less energy, we need to understand what energy we are using and how we are using it and at what rate. So a smart meter that's installed and connected to your gas or electric meter can tell the householder exactly how much electricity or gas they are using. This then helps them to reduce it. However, the government has a real big agenda to install thousands of these meters into people's homes. It is currently behind target. So going into the next few years, we are really looking for people that are interested in installing smart meters into the everyday home. I've inserted a picture on the right-hand side now called green spaces. Now, this green space is something that we'll see more and more as we move into the future. We need people who can design green spaces, and as we remove cars from the roads and we become greener and cleaner, we'll need to then convert our perhaps old-fashioned city centres or brown spaces into nice green spaces where people can take the dogs, get some fresh air, and be in a nice clean environment that will support people's mentality and help them to feel better about the future. So we will need green space designers. Also planners and architects. New buildings, new homes, more efficient, more green, designed to support the next generation, people like yourselves that have been watching this presentation. The older fashioned homes that are very leaky and let off lots of cold, and in the winter they're freezing and the summer they're very warm. New planning for new homes that are greener and cleaner. These new homes also, though, will have smart technology. Now, some of you may already be part of this smart technology present. We have new boilers that are connected with the little smart apps on your phone where you can tap it and turn it on and turn it off from a great distance away. But eventually your fridges, maybe your microwaves, kettles, heaters, all of them will be controlled by smart technology, or perhaps from your phone or a mobile device. For this to happen, people need to understand how to program these devices to get the best out of them. So we will need smart technology programmers, and we will need them in the thousands. Electric vehicle chargers, as mentioned previously, there are going to be more cars on the road that are electric, and by a certain time in the next decade, we will see the removal of carbon emitting cars and the introduction of wholly electric vehicles. However, all electric vehicles will need charging. And to do that, we'll need thousands of charging points spread across the country. They'll all be electric charging points. You'll pull up to them, you'll plug into them, and 10 or 15, 20 minutes later, your car will be fully charged and away you go. However, we do not have enough at the moment. And as more electric cars come on board, we'll have the need for more electric vehicle installers. One of the pictures at the beginning was about solar panels and how we get electricity from the sun to create electricity or to warm water. We will need more, if not thousands, or hundreds of solar panels on every home, every roof, on every possible place. This will allow us to harness the energy from the sun and reduce the carbon that we use from the dirty fuels such as coal and oil. This will be really important and will be a key way of getting energy in the future. And the last green slide there of a future job is wind turbine designers. Now you'll have seen the wind turbines on the side of hills. We call them farms because there's hundreds of them. But there's different types, one with big propellers that go around, ones that are cylindrical and go in different directions. As we move on, we'll start to see them in people's back gardens. We'll see them at the sides of buildings, etc. We'll have different kind of designs, small ones that will be built into all different buildings and objects and into lofts, etc. So you name it, the wind turbines will be able to enhance the use of the wind, supported by the sun, supported by all of the new technology coming on board. So if you are interested in a green future job, these down the side are just some of them that will be here in the future. And I'm sure there'll be many, many more that we haven't even thought of right now, but will be here in 2030, 2040 and beyond. So can we move on to the next slide, please? As I would like to have a discussion about what employers want now and then what employers want in the future. Well, right now, employers want people that are practical and that have got skills to survive in this modern day and age. However, they want people like the light bulb in the left-hand corner that have got good, smart thinking skills. Also, people that can multitask, because none of us do one thing at a time. The reality is, employers want people that can think clearly, that can multitask and do many different things all at the same time, can juggle many different balls, hopefully without dropping them, and can do the everyday practical skills that an employer needs now. So the reality is, what an employer needs now will be some of the skills that the employer needs in the future. So whilst we talked about the future green jobs, they will need to have all these skills. There'll be practical activities, there'll be multitasking skills, and you'll need to think clearly and analytically. So the jobs of the future and what employers want now are the same or similar to that of the future. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is quite a wordy slide, but I'll just talk you through it. So if you're at school, and I guess most of you watching this are, you'll have to do English and you'll have to do maths. Well, guess what? In the future, you'll also have to do English and you'll also have to do maths. And on the top left-hand side, you have IT skills, the ability to use tech, computers to enhance your employability skills, both now and in the future. However, the little section in the centre talks about some other skills that will be required. The jobs of the future will require people to be able to create and to use information that they can do something new with. Because as you grow and learn, we take one bit of information and we'll use it to do something else. Create, design, build new. We'd like you to evaluate. In simple terms, that means to examine something and to make a clear judgment. Come up with an opinion. Maybe you want to defend it, maybe you want to critique it, but you need to examine it. You also need to have the skills of analysing. So it's to take about things, look at relationships, examine. And once you've done this, can you analyse it and bring it back together so it contrasts and works nicely with evaluating and creating. Once you've got these skills, you need to then apply them, because it's pointless being a creative person or being able to evaluate or to analyse if you cannot apply what you know. So applying these skills, this information, is perhaps one of the most important aspects of the skills in the future. You also need to understand and make sense of information. So you take A, you take B, and you ensure you get C. So all the information is to be brought together. And a key aspect is, once you've learned this information, you need to be able to remember it. Because of course, you'll be using this in the future to create and to be part of that green revolution that is on its way. It started and it's coming, and it will support your skills now as you develop through your school life and into the working life and into the jobs of the future. Can I have the next slide, please? So the final slide, I believe you will set some pre-task questions. So the growth company is focused on supporting the Greater Manchester Combined Authorities area, and that's made up of the 10 areas of Greater Manchester, to reduce the carbon that's been emitted into the atmosphere. So can you try and answer the questions below to check your green knowledge? So let's see how good you can do. So question number 1 is, what is the difference between a hybrid car and an electric car? Does anybody know the answer to that question? So I believe we've got a question box. So how would you like to answer that question? Have we got any answers there, Sarah? Has anybody put anything in? If not, I will tell the audience what the difference is.
Don't think we've got anything just yet. I know that they've worked on a bit of pre-work beforehand, but it might be worthwhile if we go through the answers and then they can judge them based on their writing as well.
Okay, good. So number 1 then is, the difference between a hybrid car and an electric car is that a hybrid uses more than one source of power. So that could be, it uses petrol and it uses electricity. So hence it's a hybrid. It has the ability to cross over and use 2 different sources of energy. So it could be petrol or it could be diesel, but usually always electricity. So that's the difference between a hybrid and an electric car. An electric, 100% electric and nothing else. Question number 2 that I set was, what year will the government ban the use or the sale of petrol and diesel cars? Now then, this is a trick question because there's 2 answers to this. So to ban cars which are petrol or diesel, for the sale of them will be 2030. So that is approximately, what we're now, 2022, approximately 8 years from now, the government will ban the sale of electric and diesel cars. However, if your car is a hybrid car, that means it uses electric and petrol or diesel. The government will not ban them until 2035. So 2-part question. If it's just a petrol or diesel car, it will be banned in 2030. And if it's a hybrid car that uses both sources of fuels, they'll be banned in 2035. And you can only buy a new electric car from these points onwards. The 3rd question is, what is a congestion zone and why have they been brought in? Well, a congestion zone is a zone that's been put around certain areas like City of Manchester or perhaps London or Leeds, and the zone is designed to reduce the amount of vehicles that come into the area. And often if a vehicle comes in, there'll be a small charge, maybe 10 or 15 pounds a day, and the person that's driving that vehicle will have to pay that. Of course, nobody wants to pay money to come into a city that they don't have to pay. So this then forces people to use other modes of transport. So instead of paying that £10, you may well take a train into the city centre, you may well walk, you may well cycle. So hence the congestion zone has been brought in to reduce the carbon emitting vehicles such as trucks and cars from the city centres, with the aim of cleaning up the air in the atmosphere. And the last and final question is, what is the difference between a ground source heat pump and an air source heat pump? So at the very beginning, I showed you a picture of a heat pump, which was screwed to a wall and it had a big fan on it. And I did say there was a ground source heat pump and an air source. So a ground source heat pump, it takes the heat of the earth. So we dig down under the earth 10, 12 meters down. And at that point, the earth is at a constant temperature. We then put pipes down into the earth, cover them over and fill the pipes with liquid. And this liquid always is maintained at a certain temperature because the earth is always warm. This warmth of the liquid is then pumped around the home, therefore warming your radiators and warming your air. That is what we call a ground source heat pump. So once it's installed, it will forever heat your home. The air source heat pump is similar, but it pulls air into the home. It compresses it into a very small area, and when you compress air, it gets warm. Once it gets warm, it's then pushed out into your homes, is recycled, goes round and round, back out, and the process starts again. So in simple terms, a ground source heat pump gets heat from the earth, and an air source heat pump gets heat from the air, and it compresses it and warms your home. So I don't know how well you did, but hopefully you did very well. If you did, give yourself a Blue Peter badge. Well done, because some of these questions were quite tricky. So if I move on to the final slide. So indeed, the future is electric. It is here now and it is coming. The question is, do you want to be part of this electric future? If you answer yes to this question, then you need to make sure that you are developing your skills, your knowledge, and all the behaviours required to succeed. So thank you for listening to this presentation. And if you want to know anything else about the Growth Company, the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, and what we are doing for this green revolution, you can see a link at the bottom of this screen, and I'm sure it will be shared by your schools and the people that brought you to this presentation. So thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions? Hand back up to you, Sarah. You've got control. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take.
Fabulous. Honestly, that was absolutely amazing and so interesting. And yes, we have had quite a few questions come through. So I'll read them to you now. So one, it's quite a long question, really interesting. What impact has the pandemic and lockdown had on being able to hit the 2038 carbon neutral targets? And what can we do to overcome the gaps and delay missed targets that you mentioned in the presentation?
So good question. It's a very long question. We'll try and break it down to a few bits. So I think it's fair to say that the pandemic has had a significant effect. In a way, it's been a positive effect to begin with, because we found far less people were driving. So far more people were off the roads because we were in lockdown. Therefore, we had a lot of less emissions going into the atmosphere. So for a while, it became cleaner. However, the detrimental effect is that people weren't going to work in the same way, and therefore we weren't developing all the necessary skills that we would have required to keep driving forward towards 2038. However, behind the scenes, people have been working to ensure that the new technologies have been available, that we have electric cars, that we will be rolling out new PowerPoint technologies, that we will be using solar PVs on your roofs, and we will be using wind turbines to ensure that we have all the sources of power needed for 2038. So while the pandemic did have a slight effect on the overall drive, ultimately we have been working behind the scenes to ensure we hit this target. I hope that answered that question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That was brilliant. We've got another question for you. Just reading through these, won't be 1 second. You mentioned about the cars being banned in 2030 and 2035. Is it just new cars?
Yes. So it's a sale of brand new cars. So if you've got a petrol or a diesel car or vehicle right now, and you've still got it in 2030, you'll be free to drive it on the road until it breaks down and it gets recycled. But any brand new car from 2030 must be electric. Okay. And the banning of cars for the hybrid cars will be 2035. So this law applies to brand new vehicles, the sale and manufacture from 2030 and 2035.
Brilliant. And we have another one. How green is public transport?
Good question. Right. Well, it depends which part of public transport you're talking about. So if you're talking about the old-fashioned double-decker buses that run on diesel, then they are not green in any way, shape or form. So they are high emitting, they are very leaky, and they are not good for the environment. As we move into the future, we would like to see electric buses, which I think some big cities are now starting to use, and of course electric cars. And we also will be seeing electric trains and low emission diesel trains. So the current transport facilities that we have are not necessarily the best, but we know as we drive towards 2038, lots of them will be replaced by low carbon emitting or 100% electric vehicles that can be used for public transport. So fingers crossed, if the drive continues, we will get cleaner and greener as we move into 2038.
Amazing. And we have another question. Is the UK behind in terms of international standards for getting the green revolution going? And are jobs and training more available in other countries?
So internationally, most countries are targeting around 2040 to 2050 to become carbon neutral. The UK is targeting 2030 to 2050 also, so we are on a level par with the international partners. However, with Greater Manchester and the Combined Authority are targeting 2038, and lots of the other bigger cities are bringing that date forwards. So internationally, we are on a level par with our partners, such as United States and Australia, etc. But as all the other authorities start to drive towards 2050, we're finding that we're starting to do the work earlier and earlier. So I would think we are probably just a little bit ahead internationally, but region by region, we are 12 years ahead of where everybody else is planning, which is a 2038 target.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And you've mentioned loads of amazing new jobs and skills today. So how can students find out about more about what's available in terms of training and jobs?
Well, there's a number of ways you can do it. So you can look on the National Apprenticeship website, and that talks about all the jobs that you can get in an apprenticeship that are currently out there in the market. You can also visit the link that was at the bottom of the last slide, which will take you to our site, which is the Growth Company website, which talks about all of the qualifications that we currently deliver. Some of these qualifications are green qualifications, and in the future we are looking to deliver ground and air source heat pumps, solar PV charging. We are looking at designing. We are also looking at EV installation. So there's a number of qualifications that we are doing already and will be doing very soon, probably in the next 2 to 3 months. And I guess you could also look at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority strategy, because it has a great drive for all the jobs it would like to see in the future. So a number of ways of doing it. Apprenticeship website, look at the link from the Growth Company, or go to the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, because they will have lots of ideas and thoughts about the future jobs.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, I think that's the last of the questions. So I just really want to thank you so much for an amazing presentation. I think that was really insightful, and amazing to hear about all the new opportunities. All of the students should have a session card already. So you should be able to learn more about this sector. If you don't, please just ask your teacher to share it with you. And you can keep up to date with all things Meet Your Future at GMAX. And for all the teachers, parents listening, I've popped a link in the chat for feedback, and we'd love you to complete this on behalf of your students or children. It would be great if you could take some time to complete this feedback, because it's really important to us. But again, what an amazing session, and I'm sure everybody's learned something from this. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. The future is indeed electric, so good luck. You will enjoy. Thank you.